When a child first catches adults out, when it first walks into his grave little head that adults do not have divine intelligence, that their judgments are not always wise, their thinking true, their sentences just, his world falls into panic desolation. The gods are fallen and all safety gone. And there was one sure thing about the fall of gods. They do not fall a little, they crash and shatter or sink deeply into green muck. It is a tedious job to build them up again, they never quite shine, and the child's world is never quite whole again. It is an aching kind of growing. Adam found his father out. It wasn't that his father changed, but that some new quality came to Adam. He had always hated the discipline as every normal animal does, but it was just and true and inevitable as measles, not to be denied or cursed, only to be hated. And then it was very fast, almost a click in his brain. Adam knew that, for him at least, his father's methods had no reference to anything in the world but his father. The techniques and training were not designed for the boys at all, but only to make Cyrus a great man. And the same click in the brain told Adam that his father was not a great man, that he was indeed a very strong-willed and concentrated little man wearing a huge busby. Who knows what causes this? A look in the eye, a lie found out, a moment of hesitation. Then God comes crashing down in the child's brain. Young Adam was always an obedient child. Something in him shrank from violence, from contention, from the silent shrieking tensions that can rip at a house. He contributed to the quiet he wished for by offering no violence, no contention. And to do this he had to retire into secretness, since there is some violence in everyone. He covered his life with a veil of vagueness, while behind his quiet eyes a rich, full life went on. This did not protect him from assault, but it allowed him an immunity. His half-brother Charles, only a little over a year younger, grew up with his father's assertiveness. Charles was a natural athlete with instinctive timing and coordination and the competitor's will to win over others, which makes for success in the world. Young Charles won all contests with Adam, whether they involved skill or strength or quick intelligence, and won them so easily that quite early he lost interest and had to find his competition among other children. Thus it came about that a kind of affection grew up between the two boys, but it was more like an association between brother and sister than between brothers. Charles fought any boy who challenged or slurred Adam and usually won. He protected Adam from his father's harshness with lies and even with blame-taking. Charles felt for his brother the affection one has for helpless things, for blind puppies and new babies. Adam looked out of his covered brain, out the long tunnels of his eyes, at the people of his world. His father, a one-legged natural force at first installed justly to make little boys feel littler and stupid boys aware of their stupidity. And then after God had crashed, he saw his father as a policeman laid on by birth, the officer who might be circumvented or fooled but never challenged. And out of the long tunnels of his eyes, Adam saw his half-brother Charles as a bright being of another species, gifted with muscle and bone, speed and alertness, quite on a different plane. To be admired as one admires the sleek, lazy danger of a black leopard, not by any chance to be compared with oneself. And it would no more have occurred to Adam to confide in his brother, to tell him the hunger, the great dreams, the plans and silent pleasures that lay at the back of the tunneled eyes, than to share his thoughts with a lovely tree or a pheasant in flight. Adam was glad of Charles the way a woman is glad of a fat diamond, and he depended on his brother in the way that same woman depends on the diamond's glitter and the self-security tied up in its worth. But love, affection, empathy were beyond conception. Toward Alice Trask, Adam concealed a feeling that was akin to a warm shame. She was not his mother, that he knew because he had been told many times. Not from things said, but from the tone in which other things were said, he knew that he had once had a mother, and that she had done some shameful thing, such as forgetting the chickens or missing the target on the range in the woodlot. and as a result of her fault, she was not here. Adam thought sometimes that if he could only find out what sin it was she had committed, why, he would sin it too and not be here. Alice treated the boys equally, washed them and fed them, and left everything else to their father, who had let it be known clearly and with finality that training the boys physically and mentally was his exclusive province. Even praise and reprimand he would not delegate. Alice never complained, quarreled, laughed, or cried. Her mouth was trained to a line that concealed nothing and offered nothing too. But once when Adam was quite small, he wandered silently into the kitchen. Alice did not see him. She was darning socks and she was smiling. Adam retired secretly and walked out of the house and into the woodlot to a sheltered place behind a stump that he knew well. He settled deep between the protecting roots. Adam was as shocked as though he had come upon her naked. He breathed excitedly high against his throat. For Alice had been naked. She had been smiling. He wondered how she had dared such wantonness, and he ached toward her with a longing that was passionate and hot. He did not know what it was about, but all the long lack of holding, of rocking and caressing, the hunger for breast and nipple, and the softness of a lap, and the voice tone of love and compassion, and the sweet feeling of anxiety, all of these were in his passion. And he did not know it because he did not know that such things existed, so how could he miss them? Of course it occurred to him that he might be wrong, that some misbegotten shadow had fallen across his face and warped his seeing. And so he cast back to the sharp picture in his head and knew that the eyes were smiling too. Twisted light could do one or the other, but not both. He stalked her then, game-wise, as he had the woodchucks on the knoll, when day after day he had lain lifeless as a young stone, and watched the old wary chucks bring their children out to sun. He spied on Alice, hidden, and from unsuspected eye corner, and it was true. Sometimes when she was alone, and knew she was alone, she permitted her mind to play in a garden, and she smiled. And it was wonderful to see how quickly she could drive the smile to earth, the way the woodchucks hold their children. Adam concealed his treasure deep in his tunnels, but he was inclined to pay for his pleasure with something. Alice began to find gifts in her sewing basket, in her sworn-out purse under her pillow, 2 cinnamon pinks, a bluebird's tail feather, half a stick of green sealing wax, a stolen handkerchief. At first Alice was startled, but then that passed, and when she found some unsuspected present, the garden smile flashed and disappeared the way a trout crosses a knife of sunshine in a pool. She asked no question and made no comment. Her coughing was very bad at night, so loud and disturbing that Cyrus had at last to put her in another room, or he would have got no sleep. But he did visit her very often, hopping on his one bare foot, steadying himself with hand on the wall. The boys could hear and feel the jar of his body through the house as he hopped to and from Alice's bed. As Adam grew, he feared one thing more than any other. He feared the day he would be taken and enlisted in the army. His father never let him forget that such a time would come. He spoke of it often. It was Adam who needed the army to make a man of him. Charles was pretty near a man already, and Charles was a man, and a dangerous man, even at 15, and when Adam was 16.